as college pastor for several years. And in 2003, the Hooper family moved back to Jacksonville so Rob could help run his family business. Atlantic Logistics is a transportation logistics company started by Rob's parents, Evie and Bob Hooper. Atlantic Logistics now has 35 employees, and its annual gross revenue is $21 million. Rob has had many public speaking engagements about autonomous vehicles. He also has spoken internationally on this subject at the Autonomous Trucks Conference in Dusseldorf, Germany. Rob serves as elder in his church, and he is on the board of 6-8 Ministries. He's also on the board of the Federal Reserve Advisory Committee, the First Coast Manufacturers Association, Truckstop.com Customer Advisory Board, and a member of the Florida Freight Advisory. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Hooper.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Ike. I'm going to share my screen with you. Host is disabled. Can you give me permission to share my screen? There we go. Thank you. PowerPoint. Let's make sure we get this share. Okay. Hopefully you see an autonomous vehicle revolution with the Rotary logo. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today on this topic. This is a topic I sort of got into about in 2017 as autonomous vehicles started to have an impact. And can you hear me all right? Is everything good? Give me a thumbs up. Good. Okay. And, you know, I had interest as an economist in what's going to happen when autonomous vehicles come, futurist, and then also as a CEO of a logistics company, what's going to happen with autonomous vehicles. You know, laser pointer here. And it's come a long way since 2017 when I first started talking about the topic. Here's my contact info. If you have questions afterwards or have any follow-up, you can reach out to me. I'll have this up at the end when we do questions as well. But we have a big problem, and the problem is if you look at this red line right here, the death rate from U.S. vehicles, personally owned vehicles, trucks, everything combined is quite high. Here's 45,000, and you see this precipitous drop here, which was at the Great Recession when people stopped driving, and then it had been climbing back up again. Actually, when I started talking about this topic, death rates were rising, and it sort of went against what my argument was, as we'll develop it. But we've seen the last couple of years, 2019, an estimated 38,800 people lost their lives to car crashes, which was a 2% decline from 2018. And then in 2017, it's a 4% decline when there was 40,231 deaths. So a lot of needless lost lives due to car crashes. And if you look at the crashes, about 2% of those are equipment failure, tire or whatever, that causes catastrophic loss. Most of the rest are human error and caused by just poor driving speed, distraction, and all that. And as an economist, I was interested in a study that was done by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It was done in 2010, revised in 2015. And they found in 2010, when they did the study, if you take the cost of all the crashes, it's $250 billion there, 242. But then if you add in other costs like quality of life valuations, what does it cost, you know, for the loss of productive earning of people that are dying every year, and societal harm, if you incorporate all those factors, you end up with nearly $1 trillion in 1 year of economic and societal cost from traffic fatalities and crashes. And again, 94% of those crashes are human caused, according to the National Motor Vehicle Crash Causation Survey that was done between 2005 and 2007. And they looked at this. Now, I'm going to just quickly talk about ADAS, which are advanced driver assistance systems. These components that you probably have in your vehicle if you have a late model vehicle. These are all things that help and assist making driving safer. Emergency braking, if you're running up on somebody, your car will brake for you. Pedestrian detection and collision avoidance, somebody walks in front of you, your car will stop. Lane departure warnings that keep you in your 2 lanes, and blind spot warning lights on your side, surround view, backup collision, backup cameras. I think backup cameras are mandatory now in all vehicles. All these technologies, if you take them and put them all together, they are building an autonomous vehicle system. And cars in some form have many different versions of these today. Adaptive cruise, where you can set your car on cruise and it'll just keep pace. I have a 2015 Acura MDX, and it has adaptive cruise and lane keep assist. And driving from here to Sandestin out I-10 it's a awful drive, but it will stay in a lane and keep going. You just have to keep your hand on the wheel and continue to be alert. Now, these things are all using various sorts of technologies: long range radar, LiDAR, which is light and radar put together, cameras, and short and medium radar, and ultrasound. All these things, all these different technologies are working together to make vehicle safety safer. And I think that's what we're seeing now in decreased fatalities and death rates, is because of these new technologies that are emerging in recent model vehicles. Now, the autonomous vehicle history goes way back. Here's a picture right up here from 1961, Stanford University, always a pioneer. They created a Stanford cart, which was able to actually navigate using artificial intelligence all the way back in 1961. It could navigate 1 meter after 10 to 15 minutes of computation time. So that's pretty, I think it's remarkable to be able to do that in 1961. And there's been continual change, early autonomous features like cruise control. Your car could keep cruise for you. And that was, I think, back in the 50s. And since then, there have been many features that have been added to the vehicles to stimulate autonomous vehicles and increase safety features. But there was a marked turning point, and that came with the Great Robot Race. This was put on by DARPA. You've probably heard of DARPA before. It's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's a DoD agency. Back in the 60s, they had the precursor to the internet, ARPANET, and it became what we now know as the internet. In 70s, they mainlined and generated GPSs, global positioning systems, for military utilization. And they did a contest in 2004, and what the military was having issues trying to create autonomous vehicles that could navigate through deserts and navigate rough terrain. And so they went to DARPA and said, let's have a contest. They put $1 million prize for the first person who could navigate 142 miles of the Mojave Desert. Pretty amazing. That year, the most successful vehicle made it 7 miles. So that was the winner for well, they didn't win, but they were the most successful crew, made it 7 miles. And 12 months later, after this was kicked off, they had the race again, doing the same thing. And then just in 12 months, 5 vehicles finished the complete 142 miles of the Mojave Desert. Really amazing. Just a tremendous, a success story of DARPA and generating technology. And a lot of people that we are now talking about in the industry came out of the early relationships. Stanford and Sergey Brin of Google, they all met in the Great Robot Race. And then they've upped that race as well, doing street driving and so on. Well, here's an overwhelming picture of the autonomous vehicle network of companies. It is very small. I'm going to give you another one in just a second, but everybody's on this graph. You have on here on this picture, you have a whole bunch of chip makers that make the chips that go into the devices that are being used, like NVIDIA. If you have a game video card in your computer, Intel. You have hardware and software companies such as IBM, Panasonic, Microsoft. They're all on this board. There's NVIDIA and different companies. Then you also have all the car companies, Audi, Tesla, Ford, GM. Everybody is involved in autonomous vehicles. This industry has gotten huge, and a lot of these relationships have just been developing over the past several years. There's billions and billions of dollars going into this industry, and I think by the end, I'll convince you that this is mega business as you see who the recent players are getting into this industry. Now here's a little simpler graph, picture to look at, and right in the middle of this, you see some key players: Uber, Lyft, and Waymo. The most dramatic utilization of autonomous vehicles is a commercial application. And so Uber, the ride-hailing service; Lyft, a ride-hailing service; Waymo, which Waymo's owned or spun off from Google and was created by Sergey Brin and Anthony Lewandowski. They are all very interested in creating autonomous robotaxis, and they're doing it all for partly in part for the technology, but also for the commercial proposition. Because if you can have Uber and Lyft without drivers in them, the cost dramatically changes, and this is going to totally change the landscape. We'll talk about that in a little bit later as well. The other interest has been in this company right over here, Auto Motors. Auto Motors was created by Sergey Brin's friend, Anthony Lewandowski, who left Google, Waymo, and created Auto. They ended up in a whole bunch of lawsuits. But Auto is important because Auto was the first truck back in 2016. So this is a while ago, and I didn't do any videos. It's a great video. If you search Auto Budweiser truck, if you Google search that, you can see the nice swanky ads and demos that they have of the truck driving down the highway. I didn't know if it would translate sufficiently through Zoom, but they created an autonomous truck hauling a load of Budweiser beer, went 120 miles down I-25. The driver got it onto the interstate. The driver got out of the driver's seat, and they have videos of this. Got out of the driver's seat and went back into the sleeper cab, and the truck drove down the interstate without anybody in the driver's seat. You can see it. It sort of gives you chills to think about 80,000 pounds rolling down the highway without any driver in the seat. But this is the commercial proposition that is quite attractive to investment companies, to the technology companies, because this is the future. Now, for a personally owned vehicle, POV, there's an interest in having a autonomous vehicle. Tesla already has it. We'll be talking about them a little bit later, semi-autonomous. But the real value proposition is for the commercial, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the Waymos, the robo-taxis, the final mile delivery companies, and the trucking firms. That's where you really have to look at this, and we'll get the benefit of it. They already have Cadillacs that can run highway miles autonomously without, they have a camera sensor that looks at your eyes to make sure you're paying attention to the road, so you can't have distracted driving, but it will drive the vehicle down the interstate for you. And Tesla also has this technology, and it's had it for quite some time. Now, why is trucking going to be an early adopter in this? One, just the cost savings. You take a driver out of the seat, you're talking 28 to 50 cents, 60 cents a mile for the driver and long haul driver. If you're able to remove that driver, all of a sudden the truck is able to drive without anybody in the tractor, or the truck driver can be doing something else, such as paperwork, booking the next shipment and all that. but there's a cost savings. The next thing is we're limited as in trucking industry. I knows this too well. You're limited in how many hours you can drive per day. If you're sitting there waiting for the truck to be loaded, you lose driving hours, and that's unproductive. So now, limited to a maximum of 11 hours a day with hours of service. You can, if you have an autonomous vehicle, it can drive 24 hours a day. We also have driver shortages, fluctuates, but average truck driver age, I believe, is 58, 59. It's quite up there, and it's not an industry that millennials are jumping into, or many women. Women are starting to increase, and the industry is trying to attract more women into the truck driver position, but driver shortage is a persistent, perennial problem. The cost of adoption. It's surmised, or they expect it to be $100,000 to $150,000 to put this technology retrofitted onto a truck. Increase safety by having autonomous trucking, liability decrease if you have increased safety, and fuel efficiency. If you have a driver in the truck, they're trying to get to their destination, they have every incentive to go 70, 75, even 80. Most trucks have speed limiters in them. For the large trucking firms, but there's an incentive to go faster, which is more dangerous. But if you don't have a driver in there, you can set the thing at 55 and increase your fuel efficiency and make it much more friendly to greenhouse gas emissions. Now, back in 2017, Frigidaire worked with Embark, the technology firm, and you can see the features right here for the sight system for the truck, and there's sensors all over. So it could drive down the interstate, and they were running trucks safe, going back on I-10 between El Paso, Texas, Palm Springs, California, going back and forth with your refrigerators on it. And they've been running nonstop. But what I want to highlight here is just quickly recent stories. This was 2 weeks ago. Transport Topics, industry publication with recent news. Waymo targets Southwest Freight Corridor for autonomous truck tests. This is one of their taxis over here. This is one of the semis here. And Waymo, again, Google spinoff, is their truck division. It's called VIA. And the truck division, what they plan to do is manufacture the trucks, or manufacture the add-ons, and work with the OEMs to provide all the parts and the technology for the autonomous truck to operate. And so they're working with the OEMs to do this. But right now they're testing, rolling forward with focusing on a few freight corridors: Texas, New Mexico, California. And then here's another Wall Street Journal story from 2 days ago, July 13th. Too Simple. Too Simple is a Chinese firm that is big in the space. And this technology is happening all around the world: India, a lot in China, a lot in Europe. They've had the autonomous truck conference going on now. It's probably 5 years now. They're big in the space. And Too Simple, Chinese firm, adds logistic operators to self-driving truck effort. They're looking to build a network, and there's Jacksonville noted in the story. But they're working with McLean Foods, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company. They are a distributor of grocery goods, retail goods. U.S. Express, which is a 6,200 truckload van carrier, massive carrier. And also UPS, which you've probably heard of, who took a minority stake in the company. So all the people in commerce, trade, distribution, all the large players are getting involved in this space because they know what this means for the future of our industry. And they hope, Too Simple is hoping, working with these partners, to have the network developed in 2 to 3 years. Now, here's another company, one you've heard of, one you haven't probably. Amazon. This happened June 26th, so just 3 weeks ago, Amazon decided to jump in both feet, as Jeff Bezos typically does, jumped in with both feet into the autonomous vehicle arena. He bought billion plus dollars, which is remarkable. $1 billion plus for Zoox, which is a company just founded in 2014, and they bought it. Zoox is developing a autonomous taxi service, and this, if you recognize this is Vegas. But you know what their end goal is going to be with Amazon, which is always their supply chain. So they're eyeing being able to have these vehicles deliver your packages to your door without a driver in it, and save all that money make it more efficient, and so they're obviously investing heavily. And if you go to Vegas, you can try. I almost did. I missed it by that much. You can hop into an autonomous taxi there. They'll have safety drivers in there, 2 of them, and you can do it. Phoenix is doing this as well. I mean, this is stuff that is running on the roads right now, currently with safety drivers, but that's just a temporary measure. Finally, investor place. Investors betting big. This came out after Amazon jumped in it. Hey, this is the next big thing. Silicon Valley's placing large bets on robo-taxis. This is a big player. It's going to change things. I have 5 kids. My third son, 21 years old, still doesn't have a driver's license. He's got a big brother that he hangs around with. So I just don't need to drive. I ride with him or take robo-taxis, as in Gainesville with the bus system. And millennials are increasingly getting older and older when they want to learn to drive. And it will be a point where self-driving cars, robo-taxis, will make it so that car ownership is dramatically changed. I mean, it's foreign to us, but for our kids, they'll just use a robo-taxi and never need to own a vehicle. And it's going to be revolutionary. And then finally, if you talk about autonomous vehicles, you got to talk about Elon Musk and Tesla. He's been working on this for a very long time, and touts their self-driving ability. He's a genius. He always oversells the timeline of when he's going to do something. But if he says he's going to do something, he gets it done. Looking at what he did with SpaceX and putting a U.S. vehicle with a manned space flight again for the U.S. is an incredible achievement. He says they're very close to level 5 autonomous cars. Level 5 means it can drive in all conditions and all terrains, all weather conditions, snow, rain, sleet, whatever. That's level 5, the holy grail of autonomous vehicles, and says their vehicles very, very close. It's probably a few more years out than what he says, but Tesla's also working on autonomous truck, electric truck. They've already taken orders. A lot of the big players in the trucking industry are buying them, pre-buying them to be able to have them. It's a game changer in terms of efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions, and and for it to be, if it's autonomous, that's obviously a big player. Now, just 2 more quick slides. And this is sort of where I started. It's actually pretty close to what I started with 2017 when I first started talking about this, the ramifications of autonomous vehicles. With autonomous vehicles, we have the opportunity to get to 0 or near 0 crashes or 0 fatalities, except potentially for the 2% where you have a catastrophic failure of a tire or something that causes a vehicle to flip. But if you think about the ramifications, this is sort of the economic side of me. This is going to ripple through the entire crash economy. You think about ambulances, paramedics, fire and rescue, they're going to be dramatically changed. They'll still be running out for heart attacks and that, but they won't be spending a lot of time going to gruesome car crashes. Police will not need to be traffic cops anymore if you have autonomous vehicles and stopping for crashes. Hospital trauma units, 2 to 3 million major injuries a year go through hospital trauma units. And then organ donors. 1 of 6 donors is from a crash. If you're not a donor, I'm a donor. Please add that to your license and become a donor. It's you don't need them after you're gone. Somebody else can utilize them. But then think about the rest of the industry: tow trucks, auto body shops, parts manufacturers. Shad Khan made his billions in parts manufacturing, new bumpers and all that. If you don't have crashes, who needs new bumpers for their vehicles? Traffic congestion will decrease. We've gotten a taste of that through COVID and the shutdown. It's amazing how light traffic is on 295, and insurance companies and lawyers will change dramatically with lawsuits. Insurance companies will be a lot smaller if you don't have all those crashes. And then finally, we've already talked about some of these: cost of shipping decreases, asset truck utilization, warehouses and logistics will need to be 24 hours a day because if the trucks are able to keep running, who wants an asset sitting there doing nothing? It's potentially majorly disruptive to the trucking industry, though there are studies out there that show that it actually you'll have more final mile, white glove, different types of deliveries, but you might replace some of the long haul drivers. That's one of the easiest places. And then finally, we talked about it before, shared vehicles. If you have shared vehicles, and Peter Rummel, a developer here in Jacksonville, he got my mind thinking on this as probably 2016, 15. He's a forward thinker. He said, we're the South Bank project that they're still working on, is they're looking to retrofit their garage so it can be into usable space, because he was already looking forward to these shared vehicles when you don't have massive parking garages, because you don't need to park a car. You just get dropped off and the car keeps going, and you just hail the car when you come out. And there's, a ton of these vehicles around. The final thing I'll leave you with is this is going to be massively disruptive for the trucking industry and my industry, logistics, which comes back to why I started talking about looking at this and studying what's going to happen. If you have autonomous trucks, the largest fleets in our industry are 6,200, 10,000. You can't get over that scale, but there's millions of trucks out there. But the reason it's difficult is because trying to manage drivers and keep them running and keep the lanes going and get them home to visit their families, very hard profession. If you take the driver out of the truck, if you remove that driver, then you're going to end up with massive consolidation within the industry. Let's say 10, 20 massively large trucking fleets. Penske, Ryder, they've gotten involved in this because they'll be the ones that will be managing the truck fleets, and then trucking becomes a vastly different arena. And our industry as a 3PL, middle person between shippers and the fragmented carrier industry out there, that all of a sudden dramatically changes. Right now, the average truck fleet size 2.3. That's the average size of trucking groups, usually mom and pop companies with 1 or 2 extra drivers, and this is going to turn our industry on its head. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Any questions?
Rob, this is Joe Eberly. If you take the driver out of a truck, just kind of the practical things, and you can run that truck 24 hours a day, who puts gas in the truck when it runs out?
Yep, that's a great question. What you'll see is, your truck stops or your rest areas there's truck stops all around the country. So your truck stops would offer that service to the trucking fleets. Come in, we'll fill you up, swipe the cards, scan the side, and it continues on its way. So that you would have, Penske and Hertz would have roadside assistance to be able to manage those fleets. If there's a blown tire, pulls off, and then, a truck's automatically sent out to go service it. But the truck stops will change dramatically and be able to service those needs.
This is Frank Shy. I have a Tesla, and they just offered a upgrade. It was a $5,000 upgrade. They offered it for $3,000 until July 1st to make your car self-driving and not. I didn't know what it was. I didn't buy it. What have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, the initial Teslas, it was built into it, and it just came with the vehicle. Then then they started to add it as a markup feature. But it's if you Google Tesla's driving, I meant to mention that earlier. Tesla's avoiding crashes. Just Google that with the self-driving technology. There are videos of Tesla is about to be rear-ended, and the Tesla speeds up and gets out of the way of the vehicle coming at it. There are places where when I do it live in a in a setting where I can control the bandwidth, there's a video, and this happened back in 2016, must have been, over in Europe. Tesla was driving, and it knew that a crash was going to happen 2 vehicles ahead, and it hits the brakes and swerves out of the way before the crash even happens. Tesla, Elon Musk has been a pioneer in the self-driving technology. It's incredible. He oversells it. It's not fully autonomous, but it can drive on the interstate for you very, very well. And it's very exciting technology.
Hey, Rob, this is Dan Maloney. What really, really interesting. Thank you so much. Do you foresee a time when we start having, instead of the HOV lanes, you end up having a self-driving lane, and then eventually it turns out it's going to be your passenger driving, your actual human
Angel driving?
Yeah, and then the other question would be, do you think there will be efforts to, Frank was on to my question there, not a Tesla, but will conversion efforts be performed on typical cars right now, or is that going to be too difficult?
Great questions. I don't think, they talk about it a lot, that there'll be, autonomous lanes. I don't think that's going to happen, because the way that they're developing the technology is using LiDAR and visual cameras so that it can interact with vehicles on the road. The robo-taxis are in highly mapped areas where it knows every nook and cranny and every pothole and everything. And so this may make people feel better that that's the way it's going to develop, but I don't think that's the way it will develop. It's just, they're going to be able to drive because they can see better than you can. They can see through the car in front of you, and it's never distracted. It's never looking at something on the side of the road. So no, I don't think so. The trucks, they're working on making it retrofittable. They're working on that. Obviously, the value, if you're talking 100 to 150,000 for a retrofit kit for a semi that you can now utilize for 2.5 times the fleet utilization, you'll get that money back in no time whatsoever. For personally owned vehicles, I doubt they'll make it retrofit. People have done it. If you go around and search, people have retrofitted various vehicles with the technology in themselves, just playing with it and learning. But it'll just phase out, I think, quickly. A lot of our cars go overseas. They'll be sold off, auctioned off as people go. But a lot of what's going to happen is people are going to stop owning cars. Why would you own a car if you can just get a shared taxi and get back and forth? Or families will go down to one car, if that. I think the car industry, we probably reached peak car ownership, and it's going to be a downward spiral for car stocks. But that's why they're all getting involved in it, because they want their vehicle to be the robo taxis, and they don't want to miss out. And so everybody's gotten into that.
Hey, Rob, you mentioned electrifying truck fleets, electric trucks. How do you envision that working? Because it's not like filling a gas tank.
Yeah. I'm not real boned up on the electric fleets. They're working on hydrogen fleets and electric. Tesla's working very actively on it. I'm not sure, but they may have switch-outable battery packs where you could go in and swap it. Or, I mean, the most immediate, when you look at like propane and natural gas conversions, the early adopters of those will be the final mile deliveries where the vehicle's parked at night and it's able to charge. And so it would happen mostly locally first, and before you can get the wide scale adoption. But it's progress. I mean, it's safer, it's greener, it's more friendly for the environment. So those are all, it's exciting technology coming along.
This is Mike Corrigan. You have removed a lot of people, made them unemployed. What's your plan to do if these people are going to be unemployed?
Yep. I haven't removed anybody, but you know, it's one of those things. Technological change is difficult. We went from horse and buggy whips, and we made the transition. We went from secretaries and typists to computers. It's a positive change. And so basically, I would say the best thing that we can do is be ready to train, retool drivers to different uses. It's going to be safer. I mean, you're gonna have doctors lose jobs. You're gonna have paramedics lose jobs because the needs will across the board decrease. But you know, having 38,000 fewer deaths a year due to car crashes is all a positive thing. So yes, we're going to lose. I think we'll lose jobs, though. I think it was Uber did a big scientific study saying, well, no, we're not going to lose jobs. It's going to change because you'll have different uses of those drivers. The early use for trucking is going to be the long haul use across interstates, since that's a contained network where you don't have to navigate through with pedestrians and all it has to do is be able to pull off the interstate. So that will be the early use, but I mean, it will be disruptive, and I think the Department of Labor, economists, manufacturers, we all need to be cognizant of these changes and prepare.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you very much for being with us today. It was
My pleasure.
fascinating. Something I don't know much about, so I was taking notes, and I'm going to start researching those companies.